want to tell you a story. We're past Halloween. We've got Christmas decorations going up everywhere. I was at the store the day after Halloween, and I heard a Christmas song on the radio. I know that the fourth quarter is when most businesses pull themselves out of the red. That's why we have the phrase Black Friday. It's not a holiday. It's not. There was a year where they had Black Friday sales, just day after Thanksgiving sales at the time, and businesses that had been in the red all year suddenly made it into the black. And so that became when they started pushing the day after Thanksgiving sales so hard. And from there, it's just gotten longer and longer. This shopping season has gotten longer and longer. And I think it's a little more desperate this year than usual. I think for a lot of reasons that we, don't necessarily have to discuss here. I think everybody is feeling the pinch. So I have a very sweet Christmas-ish story. My brother is a December baby. So he didn't really clock what was going on with Christmas until he was 2. And he was 2 years old, and he woke up on Christmas morning before anybody else. And Santa had left a toy in his bed. It was a stuffed animal. It was a Curious George. And Santa had done that for all of us. We had all gotten stuffed animals. Don't ask me what mine was. I don't remember. But not one person in my family will ever forget George. Not one. We all loved George. He was so important to us. He was no longer the commercial Curious George. He was just George. And Ed woke up and found George in his bed, and he took his toy and went into my parents' room and crawled into bed with them and said, "Look what Santa got me." And he sat in the bed and kept playing with the George. My mom joked about it later, that if she had only known that one stuffed animal would be enough to make Christmas special, that's all we would have gotten every year, with just one toy. But there was something special about this toy in particular. This toy went with my brother everywhere. And about the same year, he discovered a wool Pendleton picnic blanket that my mom had in a closet. It was in its dry cleaning bag, and he was very curious. And anybody who's spent any time around a toddler, when they express curiosity about something, it's kind of hard not to let them engage with it, and you watch what they do. That picnic blanket never made it back into the closet. It was one of my brother's talisman. He dragged it everywhere. I could still see it. It was black and red tartan, and it had fringe all the way around the edges. The wool had been pulled into a fringe around the edges, and that was partly what really intrigued him. He would worry the fringe until it fell off, and then he moved on to the next piece of fringe. And eventually the blanket got smaller and smaller, and kind of the fabric got kind of transparent. And if you've ever handled anything from Pendleton, you'll understand, like, the intensity of the wear and tear and the enjoyment that he had of that blanket. So there he was, like Linus, with this red and black checked wool blanket and his George. George had a whole personality. We all just expected him at all events. It didn't matter what we were going to do. There was all of us plus George. One day my brother was wandering around the neighborhood, and the teenager a couple houses down was scraping the paint off of windows, and because they were going to repaint it before winter, and to scrape the paint off, he was melting it with a little blowtorch. And he had set the blowtorch down with the flame still on. And my brother picked up the torch and held it up and put it on George's face and said, "Hey, look, I'm cooking my George." And George's face crisped up and melted a little bit because the fabric was obviously, the fibers had some synthetic something in it. And when he saw what he had done, I'm sure the teenager got in trouble for letting a 2-year-old, 3-year-old handle a hot, flaming torch. But Ed went home, and the little felt eyes had blown off the George, and so my mom wiped the crispy bits off the George and took a felt tip marker and drew the little half moon eyes back on. And there he was, more treasured than before. And I think probably because George had been so severely injured. We moved from Ohio to North Carolina. George went with us. If we went to church, George went with us. If we went to a picnic, George went with us. Then we moved from North Carolina to California, and George again always went with us everywhere. And we roll into the 80s now, and we were going to go out to dinner, which was something we did maybe a couple times a month. I think now people go out to dinner, several times a week. I don't think it's special the way it was then. And we didn't have an occasion why we were going out to dinner, but we were just going to go out to dinner. And we were going to go to the Chinese restaurant up at the shopping mall. Well, market, one of those strip mall. Thank you. That's what I was thinking. Thanks for helping me figure that out. And it was like China Destiny or China Garden or something like this. But it was really special to us. It was Szechuan, which growing up in the Midwest, and we were all very still Midwestern, our exposure to Chinese food was Cantonese, and a lot of Cantonese is very Americanized. But Szechuan, well, that felt really way more authentic. So we were going to go to this, Great Wall of China or whatever the name of the restaurant was. And we all file out of the house one by one. And here comes my brother. And he doesn't have George. And one of us said, don't forget George. And he said, oh, George isn't coming. And this dinner was like a funeral. That was it. The day George was uninvited to dinner, my brother was totally fine with this development, and it was totally natural and at an appropriate age. And the rest of us were just floored because George, although he was stuffed, polyester, whatever, he was like a silent brother. part of the family and all of our outings for so many years. If we went to the beach, George went to the beach. If we went to Disneyland, George went to Disneyland. Knott's Berry Farm, George came along. There really was no place that George wasn't invited. But suddenly he was not invited to the Chinese restaurant. It was a very big moment. I think we only get to have gifts like that once or twice in our lives. And it wasn't even my gift, it was just a gift I got to witness. I don't know if I'll ever see the likes of George again. But as we're rolling into this holiday season where so many people haven't been paid for so many weeks, where so many people have struggled to figure out how to put food on the table, we're living in a very weird time where the president doesn't want to talk about affordability. We are having trouble affording things. Maybe find just the one gift for just the one kid that unlocks their imagination in such a profound way, and take that as the win. Maybe your Walmart Thanksgiving is gonna have the store generic items. Maybe it's gonna be 14 items instead of 21 items. But maybe we can make those 14 items the most special they've ever been. If you've never had a chance to read The Gift of the Magi, it's an O. Henry story. I really am feeling that this year. That what's meaningful in what we're doing is not in the actual gift that we give, but in the thought behind it. And I think that we've spent an enormous amount of time over the last, I don't know, 30, maybe 40 years, celebrating Black Friday, like it's a real holiday, and smashing each other in the face to get a $20 TV. We are consumers who have been consumed. And I just would like a little more George in my life. I've told everybody, no Christmas gifts. The only people who are getting Christmas gifts from me are children. The grown-ups will just have to accept that I love them. And that's it. They don't get anything else. And my quest is to capture imagination. I hope I find items that bring joy and love and excitement to the kids in my life. And I'm not gonna make anybody's Friday black with what I'm spending. It's just not gonna happen. And I don't think I'm the only one. So there we have it, a little pre-Christmas chat, a little story about Curious George with his felt eyes that went missing and his little fried face. I'm sending everybody a lot of peace and love and joy. It's going to be a rainy week in Los Angeles. Stay safe out there. Stay warm out there. Stay dry out there. Take care of yourself. Thanks for being here.